Ricky Puig, Tyler Boyd show. They've continued to have success against the Galaxy's top foe in LAFC. There you see the numbers to back it up. All right, Herc, it's a big result for the LA Galaxy, but are you buying this as a turning point for their season?
No. Because the turning point in their season was when they let Chris Klein go. And that's a reality. Since this team, we're looking at a team that's gone undefeated in the last 5. We're looking at a team that, even though they lost one of their DPs in Chicharito Hernandez, looks like a better team. Even though Preston Judd only has 3 goals, this looks like a better team. Now, the reality is they're still sitting in 13th place and in 20 games, 19 points. It doesn't look great on paper. Here's another reality. 6 points away from the playoff line. Those are 2 wins. So you can absolutely, if you want to say this is a turning point, use it as a turning point. But here's another reality. Unless this team gets deeper, because you can't rely on a Preston Judd up top with 9 goals. It's a great number for him. He's a very young player finally playing. It's a great number for him. But unless you can get a consistent 9, and Joveljic has not proven to be that consistent 9, unless you get more playmakers, unless you can continue to get the production from players like Douglas Costa, who in the last 5 games has 4 assists, or Ricky Puig, who on his day, when he wants to, is absolutely one of the best, if not the best player in Major League Soccer. Unless you can continue to get that type of production from those players, then no, it won't be a turning point in this season. But it feels like a weight has been lifted from this team's shoulders. It feels like Greg Vanney himself, you saw the celebrations after the game with Ricky Puig, him yelling into the camera. It feels like everybody on this team feels different. And I attribute that different feeling to the departure of Chris Klein.
Yeah, if this was on the heels of a winning streak, because you talk about the unbeaten streak, but there were 4 straight ties, which aren't wins. And at this point in the season, man, the Galaxy have room to make up. Yes, they are only 6 points out of a playoff spot, but there's 4 teams between them and Vancouver who right now holds the last playoff spot. They got to jump 4 other teams just to get to 9th. So I think there's still a long way to go for the LA Galaxy. Call me at the end of the month, because I think at the end of August, we're going to have a much better idea if this team can even make a run to sneak back in. You got Philly next, which is no small task. Then you got Vancouver and RSL, 2 of the teams you're chasing. Vancouver is a realistic team. RSL a little bit further up the pecking order. And then after that, you got Chicago, Chicago is a team that the LA Galaxy, if they are turning a corner, need to beat and beat convincingly. If at the end of August they've strung together something there, I'll buy into it then. But at this point, off 1 game in front of 80,000 fans, and I think that's important to point out here, Herc. You weren't at the game. I wasn't at the game, but producer Beto was at the game. He said the vibe was incredible. Surely that had a big part in what we saw from the LA Galaxy, which felt like not what we've really been seeing from them all season. I don't want to call it a fluke, but it was definitely inspired, and I don't think you can replicate it. What do we call it now? Dignity Health Sports Park?
Yeah, here's another reality. It was against LAFC. And what I mean by that, it's a rivalry game. And I don't think there are favorites in rivalry games. There never are. I don't care if you're the LA Galaxy or if you're LAFC. This is a toss-up for me. These are 2 teams that don't like each other, that for whatever reason, when they play each other, there's always fireworks, and it happened to be the Galaxy on top in this go-around. But there is something happening. And I think to deny what's happening in Los Angeles for the Galaxy would not acknowledge what you're looking at.
Herc, what about LAFC? This is their 3rd straight loss. It drops them to 3rd, actually tied for 2nd, but on tiebreakers 3rd in the Western Conference. What's wrong with this team? And if you're an LAFC fan, how worried are you? Is this a blip or something bigger?
I'd be worried. I'd be worried, man, because I've seen this movie before. We saw it last season with the Seattle Sounders, who made it to the final, but won their final in the CONCACAF Champions League against Pumas. And what happened, the aftermath after that, and what happened after that? It was a Seattle Sounders that hit rock bottom. I mean, for the first time in their history, Major League Soccer history, they didn't make the playoffs. They ran out of steam. These games started coming to a head, too many games at once, injuries, et cetera, and they weren't the same team that played in that CONCACAF Champions League. The same thing happening right now with LAFC. Since that series versus Leon, this is a different team. They've lost 8 out of the last 11 games. We're seeing players injured. Malik Tillman went on a string of injuries. We're seeing players who aren't producing to their same level. Carlos Vela. Denny Bouanga, who at one point in the first 13 games had 10 league goals. He's had 1 goal since mid-May. There's a difference in player level. There's a difference in the spirit, the mentality of these players, of that team. They're a shell of their former self. I would be worried if I'm an LAFC fan.
Do they need to get busy here in the summer? Do they need to make some moves? We saw what they did last summer. It was huge. It was a big part. Even though the form dropped, at the end of the day, it's the depth that they added that helped them win MLS Cup. I think you can look at the roster now and say, at least on paper, it does not feel as deep as last year. Herc, you want them to shop? Do they need to kind of get back in that elite list of MLS Cup contenders for you?
I think they're shopping. I think that's what's going on right now. Producer Betta just, whispered in our ear, Opoku left. Yeah, Opoku left, and a lot of money came in for him. Usually when you make a move like that, it's because you're preparing something big. I would expect something big from LAFC. I think they're the one team right now in the market that you can guarantee wants to make a splash and will make a splash. So I expect something big from them, but they absolutely need to go shopping. I don't think you can rely on what you have if you want to repeat or even come close to it.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.